Shalom from Jerusalem. Many of us will be spending Shavuot in a very different fashion this year than in previous years. Some of us will be spending Shavuot in a small group, and some of us will be spending Shavuot alone. Learning, Tikkun Leil Shavuot, learning Shavuot night, is something that's become entrenched within Jewish life since the 16th century. And some of us will be doing our learning not in large groups, not attending the shiurim that we might have attended in our synagogue or in our school, but by ourselves. And I'd like to address myself to all of us, including me, who will be in a very different setting this year. There are many customs within Jewish life. Customs have a way, minhagim have a way of growing up over the years. Sometimes a custom falls by the wayside, and sometimes a custom becomes central in our observance. In the case of Chag HaShavuot, learning on Shavuot evening has become central in our observance. It's called Tikkun Leil Shavuot. The word tikkun in Hebrew has two meanings, and both of them are reflected in the sources about Shavuot. And a bystander who would come and look in on us on Leil Shavuot and see that so many of us on a usual Shavuot are gathered in synagogues and in Batei Midrash, would ask the question, what are these Jews up to? They're staying awake all night, Leil Shavuot. Tomorrow morning, what are they going to do? They go to sleep. And if we calculate the number of hours that we're going to sleep during the day, it boils down to pretty much the same number we would have slept at night. So what's the chachma of staying awake at night and learning, especially since at some point during the night, we become somewhat sleepy? How much of the learning do we actually retain? What's the point of the experience? And I would add to that, and this year, there's going to be a greater battle than usual to keep awake and to sit and to study. Of course, it only works if we prepare in advance what we're going to study. If we wait until after the meal and then we start thinking, what should I study? It's not going to work. We have to think in advance of what it is we wish to study. But the question begs, why did this minhag take hold? Why do these Jews stay up Shavuot night learning? The word Tikkun Leil Shavuot technically refers to a set format that is read by some on Shavuot evening. But the name has generalized to all those who stay up learning on Leil Shavuot. The first mention of learning we have, it comes from the Zohar, and the Zohar tells us that Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, who lived in the 2nd century of the Common Era, that he gathered around him an elite group of students, B'nai Aliyah, and he said to them, tomorrow the bride is going to come to the wedding canopy. How can she come to the wedding canopy? How can she come to the groom if she's not properly adorned? Let us gather together and make her adornments. And then the Zohar goes on to say that this small group around Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai spent the night learning with great fervor, with melody, with fervor, and with chidushim. They came up with new interpretations, and Rabbi Shimon said to them, my students, you have adorned the kala. You are adorning the kala for tomorrow. It seems to me that in this explanation of tikkun, tikkun is normally fixing, but here tikkun means adorning. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, you must adorn the Kala before she can go to the chuppah. The Kala is Am Yisrael, and Am Yisrael cannot receive the Torah tomorrow unless they are already learning Torah. There seems to be kind of tautology here. If you don't have the Torah yet, how are you learning Torah? But Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says you can't get the Torah unless you're coming at it from a place of learning. Now, to understand what he's saying, I think we have to understand the world of the Kabbalists and the world of the mystics in general. The mystic lives within the stories of the Torah. Yetziat Mitzrayim, the exodus of Egypt, is not a historical experience from once upon a time. It's an experience that we relive, and we read this in the Haggadah, the famous Mishnah of Rabban Gamliel. A person needs to show himself or to feel himself as if he came out of Egypt. For the mystics, he came out of Egypt. Egypt is not an experience of years ago, an experience that has passed. There are many Egypts, there are many Yetziot Mitzrayim in our lives. Everyone has a midbar, has a desert in their life. These are experiences that we live that took place at a point in history, but we are actually experiencing them. And when Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says to his students, tomorrow we're going to receive the Torah, he means that they are going to receive the Torah, not just that the Torah was received on this date years ago, and we're marking the anniversary. He's saying we are living Matan Torah. It's taking place tomorrow, and we can't go to sleep. And we've got to struggle to stay awake. We've got to adorn the Kala. And there's a very moving picture in the 16th century, because that's when this custom took hold, that Rabbi Yosef Karo, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, and Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz in Tzfat decided that they were going to the Chadesh, they were going to renew this custom. In Sefer Hashla, there's a description of how the two decided we're going to stay awake and we're going to learn through the night. And this is what we covered at during this night. And we didn't stop. Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz writes, we planned that we were not going to sleep at all that night, and thank God we managed not to go to sleep. Now, we in the 21st century, we all know how not to go to sleep. We all know that you drink X number of cups of coffee, and for those of us who eschew coffee, there's diet cola, and we know how to stay awake. You know, when coffee made its way into the New World, coffee was born in Ethiopia. In the 16th century, it pretty much followed the route of, or I should say it the other way around. Tikkun Leil Shavuot followed the coffee route. It came from Ethiopia to Eretz Yisrael and then went up to Turkey. It made its way to Britain and then to France. And if you look and you'll see Tikkun Leil Shavuot followed that route, because people lesser mortals than Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz and Rabbi Yosef Karo needed the assistance of coffee to do it. But in the 16th century, you have these two greats making the decision that they're going to stay awake, as Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai did, as the Zohar tells us. And he tells us that they didn't stop for 1 minute. And first they read through all of Sefer Breshit, and they read this tunefully, bin Ima b'kol gadol. Afterwards, they read in Sefer Shmot, the chapter about the giving of the Torah, and they read parts of Dvarim, and then they read Megillot Shir Hashirim and Ruth, and parts of Tanakh, and then they learned through all of Seder Zra'im of the Mishnah. And you who are listening are saying, wait, when did their night end? The answer is, if you have all of this at your fingertips, you can review. And we're speaking about men of genius, and so they reviewed all of Seder Zra'im of the Mishnah, and then they studied Kabbalah, and there's a description of how a voice came out of the throat of Rabbi Yosef Karo saying, Yedidai, Ahuvai, Ashreichem, V'ashrei Yiladchem, worthy are you, worthy of your mothers. The crown had fallen from my head, and you have restored the crown. This is in the 16th century. Within 100 years, this custom spread, not from the 2nd century, from two greats in the 16th century. The custom spread like wildfire through Jewish communities. The Magen Avraham, Rabbi Avraham Gambiner, in his commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, mentions that in the Zohar we hear that the early Hasidim, he means Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his circle, stayed awake all night, and he says, and studied Torah, Ukvar nahagu rov halomdim lasot kein. And this is today practiced in most places where we have students of Torah. In other words, wherever you go in the Jewish world, by now, 100 years after, this is the 17th century. In the 17th century, Rabbi Avraham Gambiner is telling us this is the case all over. And he says, we can give a straightforward reason for this. And the reason is because Israel overslept on the day of receiving the Torah, and God needed to awaken them. He is referring to a midrash, which I bring on the source sheets. The midrash references the verses in the Torah that describe how the giving of the Torah was accompanied by thunder and lightning. Why do you need thunder and lightning and the sound of a shofar and noise when the Torah is given? Why do you need that? So the Midrash comes along and says, well, there's an analogy to a king who announces that he's going to come into a certain city at a certain date, and he comes into the city and everyone is asleep and no one is there to welcome him. So the king summons his drummers and his trumpet players and the bugles, and they march through the streets and they wake everyone up. And that's the thunder and the lightning and the sound of the shofar at the time of Matan Torah. Because Israel slept late. Why did Israel sleep late? Says the Midrash. Because at this time of year, the days are long, the nights are short, and sleep is sweet. And therefore, Israel slept. And in order letaken tikkun leil Shavuot, and here tikkun is being used in its common usage, in order to fix an error, a travesty of yore, we stay awake at night. Both of these explanations of tikkun, either tikkun meaning adorning the bride, because Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah, is going to happen tomorrow, or tikkun meaning correcting a historical failing. The Jewish people were not overly eager to receive the Torah. They didn't awaken with vigor. They were perhaps concerned about the burden that was going to fall upon them. For that reason, we engaged in an extreme sport at night. And it's going to be more extreme this year than ever, when so many of us will be sitting either in very small groups or even by ourselves. And the Magen Avraham says that's the whole point, because what's learning Torah? Learning Torah is not easy. Learning Torah takes effort, it takes devotion, it takes constancy, it takes a readiness for ourselves to push ourselves beyond our comfort zone. And that's what happens when we're tired, when the learning is difficult, when we're saying, this isn't rewarding enough. The point isn't the reward to us. The point is getting ourselves to make the effort, because that's how Torah is acquired. It's acquired through effort, it's acquired through faithfulness, it's acquired through constancy, it's acquired through sweat, through amal. And even if at a particular hour the learning is not that meaningful, the point of it is this statement: I'm prepared for the labor, I'm prepared for the endeavor, I'm prepared for the fact that, as Maharal says, man is made up of a body and a soul. He's a composite being. And the two are very often at war with each other. And that's just the way we human beings are. And we shouldn't be surprised that it's difficult. It is difficult, but we push ourselves and we get to the finish line. And I think that what Magen Avraham is asking us to do is to have an awareness that comes to us on Shavuot night, but stays with us afterwards. An awareness that we need to make an effort, that it's comfortable to stay in bed, but that's not the way Torah is acquired. It's acquired when we step beyond the comfort zone. Let me end thus. The Gemara in Masechet Tamid brings Rabbi Chia, who says, anyone who engages with Torah at night, kol ha'osek b'Torah b'layla shechina k'negdo, the presence of God is facing him. As it says, Kumi roni b'layla l'rosh hashmarot, shifchi kamayim libech nochach pnei Hashem. Arise and let the sound of Torah, the song of Torah, be heard at night. Pour out your heart before God. When we get up at night and the sound of Torah is heard, we may think we're sitting all alone in that room. We're not. Nochach pnei Hashem, the Shekhinah is with us. So, dear friends, I wish you, your families, your communities, all those we love, even if there is distance between ourselves and Sameach, a meaningful Chag HaShavuot.